To Smile Jamaica once again. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Thank you.
I think you've written more than a couple, and one of those books led you to this play.
Right?
What is it, the Black Church, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Black Church.
Tell me about that. You're living in Canada.
Yes.
In Toronto.
I live in Toronto.
Yeah.
And I wrote the book Black Church, and it's kind of like a diasporic historical book tracing Jamaican immigrants when they came to Canada and started churches.
How was that received
Very well received because there's no documentation, a lot of oral history over the years, over the last 60 years or so. And I just took up the challenge.
And that was the truth. This wasn't that wasn't a fictional book. That was the truth.
No. Oral interviews, interviewing pastors or their children if their pastors were deceased, and trying to get some historical record so people in multiple next generations can know a little bit about their history and what Jamaicans have done in Canada in terms of early migration in the 50s and 60s.
Yep. How easy was that to move from that to the stage? How easy was that for you?
Well, I was already doing stage plays. Many years ago when I was here on Smile Jamaica, I was here talking about private pain in public pews.
Which is another book that you wrote.
Right, and I adapted a lot of plays out of that.
Yeah.
I was doing Melody of Deception here, and so this inspired me from a different angle to write another series of plays, kind of dealing with what a lot of churches are dealing with now, succession and the next generation, and kind of what the young people want versus what the old people don't want, and some of that clashing, and putting some comedy to it.
Yep.
And present it as a theatrical production. So
One of my co-hosts, Delia Harris, is an outstanding playwright.
Oh yes, thank you for her work.
And a question I asked her recently, if there was an audience for serious theater. This sounds like something that's serious, but you put a little comedy in it, haven't you?
Always.
But is there an audience? I mean, I asked her in Jamaica, and I think there is, but most of the plays that I see, it's like a comedy. How much of this play is serious as opposed to
it's all nestled right in, because the seriousness gets balanced out with the comedy, but the comedy is also the realities that we know about, right? And to that question, there's absolutely a niche for faith-based gospel productions. It just needs more playwrights to present those type of narratives and stories, because there's much to be told to even celebrate what others have done, but also for us to take a look back, where are we going, the future, in terms of...
How difficult is that as a playwright? How do you know what I want to see? And when I say I think you know what I mean, but how difficult is that to captivate me?
You know what, it's a good question, because the captivation comes in the writing, I think, and being able to connect with truth, what everyone knows is going on. And I always pray about it, like, okay, Lord, what would you want to say at this time? And I think that persons from the churches know a lot about these stories, or what's happening. But when you put it in a story format, it's very relatable.
Yep.
Very relatable.
I'm going to quote something that you say: the play addresses what we all know has gone on in the church, but we're too afraid to talk about. Now, I don't want you to tell us everything, because I want them to come watch on the weekend. But give me an idea of something that goes on in the church that we don't want to talk about.
Well, a lot of questions around who gets the pastoral roles after the pastor gets aged, where some people feel like it's always going to the family members of the pastors, and we kind of overlooking those who have been laboring, and there we overlook them. That's a biggie, right? And also how we don't really appreciate the decision making sometimes of who people want to marry and who they love. That's also in this play as well. And so kind of taking them down that dramatic what's going to happen and so forth, and and laughing. David Tulla is helping me here on the island. Everyone knows David Tulla. He's a director here. So we have some Jamaican local artists that's also going to help bring out the comedy.
Yeah. But you have a different cast?
A Canadian cast. They arrive on Thursday, and we're really excited. We're just hoping that all Jamaican, we're going to be at the Courtly Auditorium.
This is Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Friday at 8 p.m. Saturday, there's 2 shows, 4 and 8 p.m. Sunday, 2 shows, 4 and 8 p.m.
How much?
And it's 3,000 for groups, if there's groups of 10 or more. And if you're coming as a single, it's $3,500. And at the door is $4,000. And so we have Canadian cast coming in. We actually opened up a couple of weeks ago to a sold-out show in Toronto.
I was just going to say, I heard you did
standing
well.
ovations.
You did well.
It was
How
amazing.
big is the cast?
The cast that's coming in is 6, and then there's 3 here in Jamaica. So we're kind of mixing.
How tough would it be for you to get the 3 in Jamaica who are doing it for the first time to kind of understand?
You know what? That's right. The brilliance of people like David Tull and others, we communicate. And you know what? There's so much talent here in Jamaica. And so after this weekend, we're going to continue and do more shows here with the Jamaican cast.
But you're going to take this elsewhere also, aren't you?
We're going to New York in 3 weeks after this, and then we're going to London, England, and we're going to Trinidad, and we're also going to Florida.
Okay.
So almost every month will be somewhere with the preacher.
So this is not necessarily a Caribbean thing. This is, in other words,
wherever the
other
market is.
jurisdictions could understand
Yes.
what you're talking about here.
Yes, it's a very powerful story, the preacher, Pastor Johnson, his family, what's happening in the churches and health, and is dealing with myriad of issues.
How did you balance the comedy and the seriousness? Is there more fun? Well, I say fun because seriousness can be fun also, but is there more comedy or?
It's very balanced, but there's definitely the dramatic in there, but the comedy is always infused. I mean, they had in Toronto, they were almost jumping out of their seats with certain parts. I know Jamaica's going to love this show.
Fantastic. Good to see you.
Yes.
Good to see you, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having us. And we really look forward to doing more shows here as we've done in the past.
You got about 20 seconds to recap where, when, what
The
time.
Preacher this weekend, the Courtly Auditorium, Jamaica. This is the show to see. We will be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and our tickets are available online at kaleoproduction.com. We're really pushing that. Get your tickets at kaleoproduction.com for The Preacher.
All right, good to see you.
Thank you.
Blessings. She's director, playwright, she's producer, she's every single thing in the world. And she's Dr. Elaine Brown Spencer. We're going to take a break. More on Smile when we come back. Stay with us, please.